Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sports Speak. I'm your host Spencer Ripchik.
And I'm your co-host Tanyon Loose.
Tanyon, there's a big game this weekend, the Super Bowl. What'd you think of the whole game, the big game?
I thought it was pretty good. I was kind of surprised at some of the plays that happened. I don't know how Joe Burrow came back in the game after it looks like he was like almost crying in pain after his leg got fallen on. So that's some impressive stuff right there. As far as the rest of the game, I think I'm kind of happy the Rams won. Two of my roommates are Lions fans, so they're living vicariously through Matt Stafford. I was kind of amused looking at all the Detroit Rams merch and stuff that was getting put out beforehand. But I don't know, what did you think of the game?
I thought it was a pretty good game. I wish it went into overtime there because I feel like it would have been a cool overtime game. Would have set the scene for the whole playoffs since most of the games went into overtime.
Yeah, exactly.
And were walk-off game winners. Most of my friends are from New York, so they're happy that Odell won a Super Bowl for the first time, even though he did tear his ACL apparently.
Yeah, that was a sad occurrence there. He's
a bit
looking really
tragic.
good.
Yeah. But we're going to get right into our segments this week. As we start all these off, we're going to start with our favorite news of the week. So, Tanny, why don't you just get us started off this week?
Well, my favorite news, unsurprisingly, wrestling news. Once again, so this is not exactly the Penn State wrestling team here, but it's some alumni in the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. Some guys were competing at the Bout of the Ballpark, which was a little bit of a cool concept that happened this year. So it was like a wrestling match at the Texas Rangers Stadium. So they set up mats kind of in the middle of the field there. Although when you saw views of it, it was kind of looked like it sucked for the fans, to be honest. I mean, some of them were seated, looked like 100 yards away from the mat. And I don't know how you could ever possibly see anything from there. So it looked like you either had really good seats or just really, really terrible seats. But that year, regardless, Nittany Lion Wrestling Club guys kind of cleaned up the competition. We had 3 tech falls.
Jeez.
So all 3 of them that were wrestling kind of dominated out there. I think Jason Nolf had a tech fall at 74 kilos against Israel's Mitch Finisilver, Thomas Gilman over Darian Cruz of Puerto Rico at 57 kilograms, and Kyle Snyder over Poland's Zbigniew Baranowski at 97 kilograms. So, I mean, those guys have always been towards the top of the world there, and they showed why they kind of deserve that title, and that's why they're at the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club.
Yeah, the wrestling club, not too far off the actual team, it sounds like.
Exactly.
They're still a dominant team.
Dominant wrestling.
But I, this week, have, I think, our a new sport that we haven't talked about on the podcast, Penn State fencing. They almost swept on their first day of the dual series hosted by Duke University. They took down Brandeis 25-2, Air Force 16-11, Boston College 14-1, and Johns Hopkins 18-9 in the meet. But I mean, they failed to pick up the win over Duke, the host university, losing 18-9. Against Brandeis, Penn State won 7 saber, 9 foil, and 9 EP bouts against Boston College. Penn State won 3 saber, 4 foil, and 7 EP bouts. So that was their 2 biggest matches right there. And then the other ones, they also dominated in that stretch. And after this little thing in Duke, they head to after North Carolina. They take part in the Junior Olympic Games from February 18th to February 21st, which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like a whole world, pretty much.
No, exactly. I don't know. I read a little bit about the fencing team a while back, and I never knew that the fencing team is honestly one of Penn State's best historically.
Yeah,
They have a number of national championships. I know they have a new coach now, actually, so I'm not quite sure if the program is still where it was in the past, but they've been among the top for a while, similar to the wrestling team here. So I think we're going to move on to our first segment now, which is a team that we've talked about a good amount recently, given their success this season, and that's Penn State men's volleyball. So they had, a phenomenal start to the season, like we talked about, and then they kind of had a little bit of a rough patch. But I think we're going to kind of talk about where the team is right now and our thoughts on the future of the program there as they continue on in their season. So I'll let you start off, Spencer.
Yeah, I feel like their success of recently, has been because they haven't been playing the greatest of teams. I mean, the only ranked win in the 5-game win streak they've had was against number 3 Long Beach State University out of the 5 wins. So, I mean, they've been stomping some all-right competition in those 5 games, which has been, I guess it gives them a moral boost after a 3-game losing streak early in the season. Their 2 pros the 2 best players look like Cal Fisher and Brett Wildman, who have been leading the way in the kill department for the Nittany Lions, showing their seniority out there as the two elders on the court.
Yep.
But what did you think of it?
No, yeah, I mean those are the two returning All-Americans right there, so you would expect them to be at the top there, which is good. I mean, you want your good players to show out for you, but I mean, I think I'd be pretty happy with where this team is at. We could be in a totally different place right now if you just look back at what happened in that middle portion of like kind of the start to the season there. I mean, the three losses in a row right there. I mean, the UCLA, USC ones, understandable. They're good teams, but I think this team really had like national title hopes, honestly, coming off those wins in the early part of the season. So I think to take those 2 losses and then they go to UC Santa Barbara and lose to an unranked team. I mean, given there's only a couple teams that are ranked in volleyball at the time, but still, I mean, you want to be one of those top teams. You lose 3 straight, probably not in a great place as a team at that point. And then you got the number 3 team in the nation coming in town that you have to take on there. So I think really a turning point happened in that match right there. I think it went to 5 sets, so they went into the tiebreaker set at the end there where they ultimately pulled out in the end. And I think that's where this team really showed that they kind of have the heart and the resilience that championship caliber teams can have. So I'm fine with their wins recently. I know, like you said, it's not the greatest competition, but I think if they just keep beating up on some of the opponents in their conference and they take the confidence that they may have got from that win over Long Beach State and just kind of ride it all the way to NCAAs, I mean, I'd be totally happy with that if I was the coach there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, Penn State being up on some of these mediocre teams, because they have, they don't have the toughest schedule coming up, but they do have some teams like Ohio State that could give them trouble down the stretch here. So I feel like it's a good mid-season confidence boost, which should be good setup for the rest of the season,
Yeah, it's always, some people don't know how to think about kind of where you have schedules like that where you're not playing the greatest competition always. I know like Gonzaga is a big thing in basketball. It's like, oh wow, they're always at the top, but they always play pretty questionable competition. But then come tournament time, they're still competing with those big teams out there. So I think it's not going to hurt them in the long run, whether they can win a championship or not. Sometimes you want to be battle tested like that, but I think they'll be a serious contender.
So we're going to move on to our next segment, which there's a big event going on this weekend at Penn State, a THON, and every year the Penn State athletes, they get together at the Pep Rally and do a little dance competition. So we're going to give our predictions on who we think, which sports organization will take home the crown. So what do you think?
So I think I'm going to state the obvious first. So, it seems like Penn State men's gymnastics is almost a lock every single year for the title there. Those guys, there's a reason why they're D1 gymnasts and why they can dance well. They're just built for it. But I think I'm going to kind of exclude them from my rankings here. But who knows? There could be a potential upset. But I think I am going to go with women's basketball to win. I like the roster that they have there. They have several TikTokers who are quite prevalent in the scene there and have some experience dancing and stuff. So I think they can choreograph a good routine. I think if their coach gets involved, Carolyn Keeger, she's a very energetic person. I think she would be excited about that stuff, and I think all their athletes as well would be able to put something nice together. But I think it's also a busy weekend in Penn State sports. So there's going to be maybe a little bit less competition than in years past when there is like an in-person event. I know recently there was a little bit of a reduced competition with the video format coming the past year with all, COVID and everything. But I think we're back in person now, and I think there's several teams. It's looking like men's volleyball is not going to be there. There's ice hockey, men's lacrosse, softball, baseball, all have games in different states or at other times near there. And then the big one is women's gymnastics has a meet in Ohio, so I'm not sure how that one's going to work out for them there. So I think that when you're looking past men's gymnastics and looking at the rest of Penn State sports, I think women's basketball kind of rises to the top for me as a serious contender.
Yeah, well, this is actually going to be my first THON in person this year, since last year was my first year at Penn State, and it was all virtual, so I didn't get to go. But this year I will be able to get to go and watch. And I think, like you, I also think men's gymnastics will take it home. You can't really beat a team that can do flips and swing on bars and stuff. You can't really beat that. But I'm going to go with the dark horse here. I feel like this year could be men's swimming's year. They don't have any competitions away, so they will be there. And I feel like they always pull out, what I've seen, they've always pulled out some crazy stuff. They pulled out the YMCA last year. They had their swim trunks on and everything, and they do some water stuff. And I feel like everyone likes a good water routine. And it's a bunch of guys just dancing it's a great time. So I feel like men's swimming could be a big clutch this year. But I don't know. I mean, it could be crazy. Some other team could come in out of nowhere, like the football team. I don't know, but they usually don't do too well from what I've seen.
And no, I think maybe if they wheeled in a giant pool into the
Oh
BJC, you
yeah.
could have some like synchronized swimming demonstrations.
They could probably get a couple of those
there.
like kiddie pools in, and I don't know
that
what
would
they
be
would
pretty
do there.
funny. I don't know how they would quite handle putting that much water into an arena there with a bunch of people in it. So probably not the greatest idea. But we're gonna, I think, come back now to another team that we've talked about a couple of times, and it's been one of the more scrutinized teams, I think, at Penn State this season, and that's women's hockey. I mean, they had just a phenomenal season last year, and now they're wrapping up their season just after that really just tremendously successful year that they had in the 2020-2021 season. And now 2021-2022 has been a little bit different for them. They've had some ups and downs, so I think I'm just going to ask Spencer to answer this first, but what do you think of kind of the rest of their season and how it's gone so far for this team?
Yeah, Penn State's been playing really well the past couple of games. I mean, racking up 3 straight wins over Cornell and a sweep of Long Island University. I mean, they only have a couple games left, like you said, and this is a perfect time for them to build momentum, kind of like men's volleyball is building momentum. Penn State currently sits at second in the CHA standings, just behind Syracuse, who just locked it up. And it looks like it's going to be Penn State, Syracuse, and Mercyhurst in the CHA tournament, and they're going at each other this year. The rest of the schedule looks promising for Penn State, as it only has 2-game series with RIT left, who is the worst team in the conference. So I feel like if they get 2 of those, sweep them. I mean, when they've played RIT, they've tied them and they've won. So I mean, they haven't lost ever against them or this season. So I feel like if they get those 2 wins, they could build some momentum right into the CHAs.
No, yeah, I think you're right in that aspect, and I think they definitely have a good shot to end the season on a high note. I mean, it looks like they're going to have to play Mercyhurst in the CHA tournament. If they're the 2 seed there, they're not going to get to play the 4 or anything. So, I mean, if they do end up getting that second seed, I mean, they need to beat RIT at least once to do that. So, I mean, I don't see that not happening.
Yeah.
I think RIT only has 1 win in the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
But I just kind of want to look at the season more from an overall standpoint. I think that as like Penn State fans are probably just disappointed with the results this team has put up, and I don't know really what is to blame for that or who is to blame. But I think just after last season, they had some of the highest highs in program history. They were ranked for a little bit. They had a legitimate shot to maybe even make the Frozen Four at one point in the season. Something this team has never done, obviously, and it's a relatively youthful program. It's still on the up and up, as is all of Penn State hockey with the new arena and everything that was built. But I think just after coming down from that season and not really losing too many key pieces there, I mean, they really have the majority of their production back after the season. You would think they would be set to, if anything, build upon that with the experience now that they have, but I think it's really been more of a regression this season, and I'm not sure exactly where to pin that on, but I think that if you're taking second place to a team that you beat last season in Syracuse, I don't know how to put that exactly. I think that they can kind of close things out here, and if they beat Syracuse in the CHA tournament, kind of, if they get past Mercyhurst as well, I mean, that's cool for them. Mm-hmm. That's good. I think that's something to look upon in the future and as an accomplishment, but I think that for where this program was just last year, I feel like they may have had some higher sights set on this season, and I think that they probably wouldn't be happy with the way things played out either.
Yeah, so one plus that I saw from the season so far is Olivia Wallen. She looks like to be an emerging star for Penn State. I mean, scoring 3 out of the 10 goals in their big win over Long Island. And then Natalie Heising, I mean, she's going off. She looks to be like one of the best players in college hockey this whole season. So she's a good talent there too. So I mean, they still have a lot. They still have potential. I mean, obviously this season didn't go too well as people have hoped. Kind of like, I don't know if you get this reference, but or you think this reference is valid. They kind of remind me of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in football. Brought everybody back and still fell short to run back to the Super Bowl. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do have a point there. I think from an individual production standpoint, the numbers really aren't that different, I don't think, this season. So I think you can't really blame it on any one person individually for not performing this season or anything like that. But I just think that as a team, they just didn't get the job done like they did in years past, and they have quite a few losses to some good teams as well, which is all right. But I think that they want to be amongst those teams at this point. I mean, they have one of the premier arenas in the country. They have good support and everything like that. And I think, this program has the opportunity to build. So, I mean, we'll just have to see where they end up in the future. And who knows where that will be. They've now had a really high season up there with the best of the best in college hockey, and they've had some average seasons in there, so it's kind of a matter of time to see where this team will go.
Yeah, they could make up for it very shortly here in the postseason and erase all the what happened in the regular season.
That's the beauty of playoffs.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for this episode of Sports Week. We'll be back for another episode next week.
Yeah, if you like this podcast, please subscribe to the Collegian YouTube channel, and thank you, and have a great rest of your week.